No. Hold on, let me
know when you're ready.
Okay, hold on. Go ahead and let everybody in, Carolyn.
Okay. I'm doing admit all. We've got 2 more. Wait a second. Okay.
Here we go. There we go.
Oh, okay, I think that's fine.
Okay, so welcome to McHenry County Green Drinks.
1 second. They're all coming in right now.
Okay, and I won't finish starting.
Okay, I think.
Everybody coming in?
Yeah, I don't know how to make sure they're on mute.
Yeah, it looks like everybody's in.
Okay.
Okay, welcome to Green Drinks McHenry County. I'm Ann Baston. I've not ever been the MC for this before, but Leslie is at home because we have our committee members here present in the room. So most of them, or they're in the room next door. So our committee is made up of volunteers and including Nancy Sheetzel, Cynthia Canner from the Environmental Defenders. Who else is here? Oh, Nancy Williamson. I'm Ann Baston. Leslie is online with us today, and Carolyn is out in the hallway, and we're just missing Judy Goffo, who is oh, Pat's out there too. Pat Dekoff is out in the hallway too. Oh, and Destiny is taking Cynthia's place on the committee, but Judy is in Belgium tonight. So I'm very upset that she's missing this event tonight. So is there anyone new to Green Drinks who has never been to Green Drinks before? Welcome. So Green Drinks was started, it's an international organization if you go to greendrinks.org. And it started out just people talking about, found out there were other people talking about environmental issues sitting in bars. So they just made it formal. There's now we're back down to around 350 international groups that are still meeting. We don't know if all of them are meeting during COVID, but we've been able to continue meeting, and we've been meeting for over 14 years. But there are some new organizations, and I did write this down, Leslie. So you can clap if you've been to any of these places. So there's Hexham in the UK. Santa Cruz in California now has a group. Youngstown, Ohio. San Pedro, Buenos Aires. Fairbanks, Alaska. Kolen, Germany, Koeln in Germany. And then Park City, Utah now has a group. Okay, so I think that's that on the history of Green Drinks, so welcome. Who has, oh, Nancy, no, who has this? Oh, Judy's the one that has this speaker for coming up for December. And what we're going to be doing, as you know, our tradition now in December is we focus on alcohol. So, and sustainable alcohol. So last year we learned how to make a drink from a sustainable alcohol. This year we're going to be talking to some representative from the wine industry, one from the beer industry, and one from the spirits industry about sustainability in alcohol. So that's what's coming up in December. I don't have everybody's names because Judy has that and she's in Belgium. But that's next month. And that'll be, I don't have the date written down. And then tonight though, I get to introduce Kerry Leigh. She is with the executive director of the Natural Land Institute and a board member of the Prairie State Conservation Coalition, a consultant at the Illinois Nature Preserves Commission, and appointed to the advisory board to the IDNR. She was previously with Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning in the Environmental Division prior to all of this. But I contacted Kerry because I don't know if you all saw things happening on the Bell Bowl Prairie on Facebook and wanted to know a little bit more about it. And so we invited Kerry here to explain to us what's going on and how we can help and what it means to the rest of us in the environmental community. So I turn it over to Kerry.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thanks, Ann. I just have a quick question. Is somebody going to be monitoring questions in chat?
Yes.
Okay. 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 So I'm presuming then after I finish presenting, we'll just open it up for questions from the room and also from chat. So thank you all for being here. I've been here a couple of times. It's been a while, and I'm glad to see everybody still meeting and coming together after probably a long hiatus on Zoom. So good for you. And this is a great room. So I want to talk tonight about a pretty remarkable fight to save Bell Bowl Prairie. About 3 years ago, back in 2019, the airport submitted plans to the Illinois Department of Natural Resources and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to put a road through the Bell Bowl Prairie for their airport expansion. But what we have since found out is a couple of things, is that not a single environmental group heard about the public hearings. When we went back through, we did some FOIAs and we went back through all of their minutes. It was hardly mentioned. And at the public hearing that they held, it was very brief. It only lasted a few minutes. And there was not a single environmental group there. So that kind of tells you something. Even the local Department of Natural Resources staff did not know this was happening. So around the beginning of October, I got a call, and one of our staff also noticed bulldozers out there on the site working and bulldozing up a portion of the prairie and putting in the road, starting to put in the road. So the Natural Land Institute had been working for years on that prairie to do management. Nobody had ever spoken to us. It was with the permission of the airport authority. So we were all taken aback. We were all blindsided. So people keep asking us, how come you didn't know about this? Well, it was a pretty well-kept secret, I think. They felt that they did all the things necessary in the process. So when we start to take a look now at the long-term strategies that I'll talk about later on, one of them is to take a look at the processes that are currently in place that are protecting our natural resources and see how can we make them more robust. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So when we found out about this, we immediately tried to gather some information and find out what was going on. We called the airport, we spoke to a couple of people out there. They just said no, they had all their permits. They were doing everything that they needed. They'd done all the hearings and everything, and they were just moving forward. So we pulled together this coalition of partners who were really, really involved with this. So Sinisippi Audubon, they were also one of the first responders on this because they have a lot of birders who go out there. And in fact, there's so many awesome birds we'll talk about a little bit later. There are birders from all over the Midwest who come to Bell Bowl Prairie. So the prairie is located in the airport. Also, Sustain Rockford is a good partner. The Sierra Club, and in fact, we have hired one of the Sierra Club's lawyers. Friends of the Illinois Nature Preserves is playing a big part in this, as well as the Illinois Environmental Council. So we'll be talking about their roles in a little bit too. So this is a nice picture of the prairie taken by Jessie Crow Mermel. So originally, this area, of course, was part of ancient peoples who moved throughout the area, different tribal groups, mainly the Ho-Chunk Nation, but also the Winnebago and Miami, the Potawatomi, Sauk, etc. Excuse me. And this is from the Public Land Survey, the map on your left. I don't know how well you can see that. That's Bell Bowl Prairie. And it used to sit in vast swathes of prairie. It was protected to a certain extent because it was gravelly, wasn't good for agriculture particularly. It also was kind of hilly, so it was protected. Around World War I, they excavated a little bit of the prairie into a bowl. And the World War I cavalry were there. It was military throughout World War II as well. And they had lots of events out there. So it's very historic, kind of in that sense. So I'll be showing you this area here, this bowl area. I'll show you that later on where that lies in the overall piece of it. But this is all gone now. This has all been bulldozed, this portion of the prairie. So it was originally 25 acres about a year ago. And out of that 25 acres, there's about a 5-acre piece in there, which is an Illinois Natural Areas Inventory site, very high quality. And this portion was considered medium, like sort of degraded. I don't know how many of you know Jack White, but that's him in the top left, doing a little tour of the prairie. And you can see the hills there, the slopes. And at the bottom is George Fell, standing out on the prairie. And about 1977, the airport wanted to dig up the prairie for gravel. They wanted the gravel that was there. And this is an 8,000-year-old ancient prairie. So the significance of this prairie was lost on the airport and has always been lost on the airport, even though they have been told about this. Now, many of you have heard this, that there's 1/100th of 1% prairie, overall prairie remaining. This is dry gravel prairie. And there's under 80 acres of dry gravel prairie left in the state of Illinois. And of that 80 acres, there's only 18 acres of high quality dry gravel prairie, of which the 5-acre INAI site is part of that 18 acres. So you can see that this is rare. So when we talk about the rarity of this prairie, there's a couple of things that you and I kind of get, not everybody gets. When something is rare, it becomes even more priceless for a wide variety of reasons. And someone made the analogy, would you go and rip the Mona Lisa off the wall and cut it up because you didn't, for whatever reason, because you wanted to use the canvas? So that's what we're talking about here, something rare, something precious, something ancient. Now, when we do a lot of prairie restorations regionally. We take degraded prairies and we do intensive management on them. And partly we have to do intensive management because the quality of the prairie is not as great because it's had a lot of disturbance. So that allows invasive species to come in at a higher rate. When you have an ecosystem like this, it's not that we haven't done management on this prairie, but it's that there is such a symbiotic relationship with the soils and all the underground life, all the mycorrhiza, all of the underground life that works kind of in harmony with the plants. So this something has taken 8,000 years to evolve and mature. So to go up and just dig a few plants and say you're going to save a few plants out of this prairie, to me, is a huge failure. We may save some of the genetic diversity of those particular plants, but what about this as a real scientific study area? There are so many things we do not know. George managed to talk to the governor, got the governor to stop, but the airport refused to do permanent protection. But they did agree back in 1977 to have the Natural Land Institute manage the land. And they agreed that in their resolution, they had a board resolution, that they would notify the Natural Land Institute if there was going to be any activity out planned for the prairie. Well, as we all know, that didn't happen. So here's a picture. I just want to show you that up here is the bowl part of the prairie. This part is kind of medium quality, and then the yellow is the high quality. The red line surrounding that is the airport property where they're going to be developing. So the bowl part and a portion of this is gone. They've already bulldozed it. So out of the original 25 acres, there's now about, best guess, 12 to 14 acres left. So on this prairie, there are 164 plant species. There's an endangered bee, the rusty patch bumblebee. There's endangered plants and rare birds. So there's the rusty patch bumblebee, which is what got this to stop. As they were bulldozing, one of the IDNR heritage biologists went out and found the rusty patch bumblebee and did a record of occurrence with the DNR. DNR reopened consultation. So now remember that they had only done consultation on the road, which we'll talk about in a little bit. There's a grasshopper sparrow, state threatened black-billed cuckoo was seen out there in 2013. There's the bobolink, Bell's vireo, blue grosbeak. How many in here are birders? Oh, there's a little contingent over on this side of the room. Okay. And the site is regularly visited by the state endangered loggerhead shrike. So the story I can tell you about the loggerhead shrike, and we know it's there, even though it's not seen a lot, but we know it's there because it takes the mice and it impales them on the trees. And someone said to me, oh, they do that to decorate their area for their mate. And then somebody else said, oh, well, they do that to kind of stake their territory for their, so I don't know, does anybody have a different story? Well, they do eat them, but they sort of decorate their area with all these mice impaled on the, I just thought that was hilarious. Anyway, there's the endangered prairie false dandelion, the large flowered beard tongue, the rare aromatic aster, prickly pear cactus, and the prairie gentian, which you see here in this photograph. And this is where I want to really talk a little bit more about the soil relationships in these ancient prairies, that some of the restorations that we do, and I started doing this when I was doing wetland mitigations and trying to recreate wetlands for development back in the early 90s. And I was looking around and seeing how so many of these wetland restorations were not very successful. They became cattail havens and whatever, and they were just a mess, some of them. And I had a mentor whose name was Dick Young. I don't know how many of you knew him. Yeah, some of you knew him. And he taught me how to inoculate. And he said, what you need to do is, and he said, this is highly illegal, is go to a really high quality site for your wetland and get a few buckets of water and muck and take it and dump it into your wetland restoration. So since then, whatever restoration we've been doing, we have gone to sites that are very old and really good remnants and taken a few soil borings and put them in our restorations or buckets of muck. So that these soil relationships are extremely important to how these systems function. And when we talk about an ecosystem, we're talking about just that. It's a system. So all of these rare plants, all of these rare birds, all of the insects, like the bee and all of the pollinators and other insects, they all rely on this balanced system. And there is on this prairie an extremely robust population of hemiparasites. And the false-toed flax is a plant, but it's a parasite plant. And these parasites kind of work to knit the plant community together. So it's kind of like if you think about the mycorrhizin, the bacteria, and the fungi and all of that under the soil, that all knits these communities together. Has anybody read a book that's come out recently? It's a bestseller, I think. It's called Finding the Mother Tree. Yeah?
Fantastic.
So it's all about the underground life that we are so not aware of, really. We tend to look, when we do our restorations, we look at what's above ground, or we do look at the soils and the hydrology, but we don't look at the living soil. So if you have a chance to get that book and read it, I think you'll be enchanted by it. It's quite a nice story. So these restorations that we do, sometimes you see that they're dominated by certain plants, or, you know, some of the native plants are taking over because they're more aggressive. Well, these hemiparasitic plants really help that balance and keep things from taking over too much. So this is a picture of the prickly pear. So you can see that we have cactus in Illinois. Is that Will taking pictures? I'll wait till he's taking a picture before a second. Okay. So these are the cactus here, and these are the little pears that come off of that, which are edible.
Okay.
I think that the rest of it's edible too, but
We're going to time out for a second. We need to have you switch to from presenter mode to slideshow.
I'll just let you do that.
Too. See if we can do it from here. No. It's behind here.
So this is probably more than you wanted to know about the biology of
Changes.
that.
Okay.
And Will, I'm sure you could add more information about the biology, but I just
No,
wanted to
this
give
is-
people a sense really of how special this place is. Because people are always asking me every single time I have either a radio interview, a TV interview, a press newspaper interview, why is this place so special? People don't understand why this place is so special. So that's the message that we need to get out there. So when you're talking to your friends about this, hey, did you see this Bell Bowl Prairie thing that's going on? This is really a special place, scientifically, ecologically, and also not just for beauty, but for us. So the message that I kind of want to give to everybody is that we are no longer just saving a bee. We are no longer just saving a prairie or a bird or a fish. We're saving us, because we recognize that we are not separate from nature. We're not apart from nature. We are a part of nature. And we are in the 6th great mass extinction. We are in it. And this extinction is caused by us, by bulldozing. So when we talk about development like this, how can we say that a parking lot is more precious than an 8,000-year-old ancient prairie? How can we even think of that ethically? This is 2021. We're not back in, 1950s and 60s. We have a different, even the 70s, we have a different perspective now on our environment and our role in it. And that includes not allowing anymore. We cannot allow this to happen. And I think our regulatory agencies need to step up.
you can keep going if you want.
Okay, is this the next slide?
But
Yeah, that's right. I want to do this.
except we're not getting, Zoom is not showing the slides.
So where's the Zoom camera? Can you put the camera on there?
Carl has an idea. Let's see.
And also it's showing that little thing so that it's
This
not
is
big.
what Zoom's showing. This is what she's presenting off of. That's the shared.
And
screen.
Carl, we don't want that because then it's not big for everybody. It shows the
No,
next
actually,
slide.
yep.
Well, we needed to show on Zoom more importantly.
What happened?
They were seeing this view on Zoom,
Yeah.
the presenter view. And
Yeah.
so we tried to switch it, but then it. I think this is something we have to share.
This is the one we were tinkering with.
This is the one that's got the,
Intermission.
yep.
So we- Hide presenter view. There you go.
But it's
There
not
you go.
showing here.
Yeah.
We need to get it, it
How is
needs
this
to
in-
be,
Why was houses?
it should be on this one. She should be sharing her screen.
There, now it's big on the screen there.
Yeah, but it's not showing in Zoom yet. I gotta find Zoom
How do they connect?
there.
We're on McGuire Road.
There we go.
We're in relation to the feed store. In relation to the feed store, that's
All
further.
right, there you go. You got it.
But I need to get it to play the.
So you need to go to.
Yeah, that's a big screen on the big,
Back to
big on
there.
the
Hide
screen.
speaker.
Our spot, you know where.
This looks good. How, we got it. Maybe
I disappeared there.
you disappeared.
Right on that.
There. I think we got it now.
Wait, it's gone. It's gone again. And the thing for advancing the slides is going automatically. I don't want, why is that doing that? Okay. Just go from the current slide. Okay, good. It's good. It's good.
We're gonna change, hide the presenter view.
It was fine.
Okay. It wasn't here though.
Okay. Well, do it like that.
Let's see what this switches to.
That's okay. I think it's switching now. Well, I'll have to live with that, I think.
Okay, you guys on Zoom are gonna have to live with this view. Because we're not able to.
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay, we want to finish.
So on this map, we're going to talk a little bit about the Rusty Patch Bumblebee. So on this map, what you see is a slightly gray area. And that gray area kind of goes all the way up there, down there, all the way up on the east coast. That was the original range of the Rusty Patched Bumblebee. Now take a look at the yellow area. The yellow areas are where they currently have habitat left for the bee. And the red dots, there's a few tiny little red dots, are where they have actually found the bee. So you can see the range that it used to be and where it is now. So there's a cluster here in the Midwest, around Lake Michigan, and then it goes up kind of northwest. So that's what I'm talking about, this sixth grade extinction, and we've all heard this. How many of you heard that, I think it was last year, Audubon released a report, something, I can't remember the number, was it 10 billion birds gone? Something like that. 10 billion birds gone in the last 25 years in the world. I'm scared to think how many pollinators are gone, but I guess many of you remember when you were kids driving around and you would go on road trips and your dad would have to, mom or dad would stop and scrape the windshield off because they couldn't see. Now you have to rarely do that. I can travel to and from North Carolina, 2 13-hour trips and just clean my windshield once. So
They stayed on.
okay,
Zoom was still on while you just
Okay.
lost, they couldn't see you.
okay. So the Save Bell Bowl Prairie movement took on a life of its own after we started putting the message out there, and all these groups with their memberships. The Illinois Environmental Council prepared a message for us where you could just click on it and send a letter to the governor, Senator Durbin, the mayor of Rockford, all the airport commissioners, to save the prairie. Within the first couple of hours, we had over 500 hits on this. We started sending it out to all the different organizations, and to date, we have over 6,000. We started holding public meetings. We just had our last one last night, talking about next steps. What are we going to do next steps? So I'd encourage you to go to the website. One of the radio hosts I was talking to said she was looking at this website, savebellbowlprairie.org. She said it's one of the best websites because it gives you all the history, a lot of the information, and it gives you action items that you can take. So if you're like, what can I do? What can I do? Go there and it tells you what to do. The biggest thing you can do is make your voice heard. That has had a huge impact on what has been happening. So we are grateful to the partners at the Illinois Environmental Council, and we're hoping in our next steps, we're going to be working with them to get a meeting with the airport authorities because they are still not talking to us. They did issue a press release saying they were going to be stopping any excavation in the prairie until March 1st. So we only have 4 months. So the Illinois Environmental Council has been a great partner to us. So I just want to kind of take you about what some of the prairie looks like now. So when I said it had been about 25 acres, now it's down to 12 or 14. This is kind of what's been happening. So you can see here in the little green outline is the prairie, that 25 acres of Bell Bowl Prairie with the bowl on the top left, and then it curves down. And then we overlaid the road on that. So the very dark line is the paved portion of the road, but because it's going up a hill and roads need sides and they need hillsides. So this is the width here, this whole piece there. That's the width going right through the highest quality portion of the Bell Bowl Prairie. So far, they have excavated, and I'll show you in a couple of plans. They've excavated up to here and laid the roadbed, and they come down to here. They just haven't gone through the prairie yet. So we have a big fight ahead of us in having them alter the road. And we want to, the message is we can have the expansion of the airport and save the prairie. It's no longer stop the airport. It's like, we can redesign this. We have put together a kind of core team of designers and restoration ecologists to talk about, and they have put together a plan, we'll show you in a little bit, how we can do this. But they've already invested a lot of money. So one of the things that we want to work with them on is how can we find additional money to help you redesign and redo some of this stuff.
We're not getting this picture.
Pardon?
We're not getting the picture that you're talking
Well, you
about.
know what? They're still on that
Oh,
B picture there.
thank you for telling us. See if we can get it.
So we kind of skipped a picture. Did we? Oh, maybe not. After the map,
It won't let me go to it there on here.
won't let you go to there.
We still have the Bumblebee picture.
Here's the question mark. That portion that was in that red line on your map before you said that was the property, is the whole entire Bell Prairie in the airport property,
So you can see it on this map here.
so the whole thing.
Yes.
Except for that area.
Well, this is actually, yes, this is airport property.
That's all
This
I
is
said.
the red is their expansion area.
Okay.
But we also think that there's going to be more expansion in this, which is why they're building this road. Because that's a typical, working previously for a transportation agency, that's a typical ploy. You put the road in, then you do all the other stuff. And then when people protest, you say, oh, we've already put the road in. We have to do it now. So, yeah,
So the whole thing is at risk. then.
yeah,
Yeah,
the whole thing.
eventually, yeah.
So you can see here, oops.
Yeah,
The plans.
There we
are
go.
Kind of underlaid there. It's going to be, this Rockford Airport is not really a passenger airport. They have like a couple of flights a week for passengers. This is cargo. You know, it's a big UPS hub. There's talk that a lot of this cargo space that they're building, which is this orange building.
you want to go next? Go ahead.
No, I want to stay on this for a minute.
Okay.
Which is this orange building is for Amazon. And Amazon, interestingly enough, they have a big green push. And yeah, I don't know, they do a lot with their buildings. So one of the things is we have been talking with Amazon to see if they would promote this.
I'll keep moving the mouse. It
Okay,
disappeared.
there's something not there either. So on this slide, there was another plan. This 2019 plan, if you could keep it on there.
I'm trying. Yep.
This 2019 plan is what they did consultation with. There's another plan that's supposed to be showing up on this slide here, and it's not showing up. It's different. It's very different from what they did consultation on.
This one?
There it is. Yeah, it's supposed to be on the same slide. I don't know what happened. So it's a little bit different. Oh, oops. Okay. Now it's showing up. It's decided to load, I guess.
Carolyn, you're muted.
Correct. We're not getting anything on this end for people on Zoom.
Okay, how about now?
Good.
Okay, so just to go back here, this is looking at standing in the prairie and looking out on that side, which has been excavated, and you can see this large area of disturbance. So you can see how much work has been done out there. Then standing on the other side and looking out, there's also this excavation. So some people have said to us, well, what about if you just have this little island left? And we have had experience with other places like this, that they, with management, they can maintain their biodiversity. So in the immediate, we're looking for a halt of the construction of the road through the high quality area. And we have until March 1st. In the short term, we are asking to work with the design team and the engineers to redesign their expansion plans on that concept that we can have the airport and the prairie. Because this is a huge economic thing for Rockford. And we can assist with finding additional funding. And in the long term, we want to have the airport dedicated as a nature preserve, so it's protected in perpetuity. And the Natural Land Institute and all of its partners are willing to continue the management at no charge to the airport. So the airport development means hundreds of new jobs. Rockford Airport is the fastest growing air cargo hub, and we want this success to continue. Saving Bell Bowl Prairie does not mean that economic development doesn't have to mean the destruction of the prairie. So I just want to show you a couple of alternative design concepts that Domenico D'Alessandro came up with. Domenico, some of you may know, he is a landscape architect, and he's done a lot of this kind of work. He's retired now, but he has done a lot of visionary work. And one of the things that he says that we need to think now, when I mentioned to you before, this is 2021, we can no longer think this way, is that the metrics that we have used in the past is we have not valued the prairie. If we were to value the ecosystem services alone, and I've been reading a couple of papers on this, the services like cleaning water, cleaning air, providing pollination for food, all those ecosystem or the benefits of nature, if you like, would come to hundreds of thousands of dollars per acre. Then I add on top of that, how much would it cost? So an insurance company looks at what's the value of something based on its replacement value. So if we were to build another prairie like this, and maybe it might take 500, 1,000 years or something, what's the value of that? Nobody adds that in when they're doing their valuation. So we need to change and stop looking at just this one little economic piece without valuing the whole thing. And that's how we need to take a look at development and our natural world, is it has to be a complete valuation. So this is the road here, the little dotted black line there. This is the alternative design. So we took the 6-acre parking lot and he put it into a parking garage instead of having 6 acres. We took out some of the detention basins because all of that airline parking there could actually have underneath it pervious pavement, and it could store stormwater under there. In terms of the road, the bowl, as you know, is already gone. So, you know, that the road is going up along there. The proposal is to take the road either up that way, or another way would be to bring it down here and go up that way. So there's different ways that we can do this. So this is just a picture of this guidance for the usage of permeable pavement at airports. So you can see there, underlying all that asphalt is stormwater storage that slowly percolates out. There are also de-icers and other kinds of safe things to use instead of the traditional chemicals that they use out there. So there are also alternatives. So we have a whole key set of legal steps. So I did a press release or press conference last Wednesday when we announced that we had put in a lawsuit and we're asking for a temporary restraining order to stop them stopping work, because they were going to, remember, they're going to start up again November 1st, and we wanted to have this temporary restraining order. And then we also were applying for what's called a preliminary injunction. So temporary restraining order would have given us 14 days. The preliminary injunction would have given us a few months, but the airport came back and said, okay, we're not going to do anything until March 1st. So we withdrew the temporary restraining order and the preliminary injunction. We signed an agreement with them that they won't touch the prairie until March 1st. But we still kept our options open for doing a temporary restraining order if we need to. Then we are going to complete service of the complaint on all the defendants, which includes U.S. Fish and Wildlife. It doesn't include state agencies, Department of Transportation, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Department of the Interior. So we've got a whole slew of people. Because one of the things that happened was that the original environmental assessment that was done was flawed. It did not take account, of course, of the Bumblebee. But even in the environmental assessment, the firm that went out there to do the environmental assessment was probably only given a day, we think a day or two from reading the EA. And they said in there, we didn't find these things, these listed plant species. We only had 2 days on this big site. We need more time, and this environmental assessment needs to go deeper. Well, that didn't happen. And it was declared non-critical habitat. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife declared it non-critical habitat for the bee. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is being sued by the NRDC, the Natural Resource Defense Council, because they have not come out and put together their proposal for saving this bee. So they're saying that the bee only nests in woods. Well, the bee used to pretty much nest in woods when it had a bigger habitat. Now there's research that has found that yes, it does nest in prairies. So the rationale for stopping the work by the DNR and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife on November 1st, back a few days ago, was that the bee is no longer foraging on the site. It's kind of gone dormant. What happens is all of those worker bees kind of die off, and then the queen goes into the nest, and she's got all the fertilized eggs in her ready for next year. So they have not declared it critical habitat, which means they're not protecting the prairie. They were only protecting the bee as long as it was still foraging. But we're saying, no, the bee is probably there because it's 2 miles to the nearest woods. And that's about kind of the range of the bee. So we want to have the EA take a look and take more time to go in the summer to go and review and see if we can find where the nests are. So we are also preparing to serve discovery on all the defendants. We did some FOIAs, but we think there are things that are missing. We've been finding things that people have been sending to us. So we're going to dig deeper. We're going to be demanding to work with the Greater Rockford Airport Authority regarding alternative plans. And we have put together a core design team. We're going to be meeting tomorrow to discuss how we're going to approach this. We're meeting with our lawyer. So at the moment, it's conversations between the airport lawyer and our lawyer. Once we have all the documents from the FOIAs and all the things that we didn't get before, we're going to then schedule depositions. And then the court will schedule a date for the trial. So there's still a lot of work for us to do. So we have so far committed of NLI's funds, our board approved $25,000 for the legal team. Of course, they've burnt through that already. The partners are putting together a GoFundMe. So we're going to be looking at raising money for that. We don't know. I just heard today we had asked for a grant from the Annenberg Foundation for $70,000 for legal fees. I just heard today that was declined. So we have a lot more work to do, exploring funding options and developing some long-term strategies. So I can't say enough about the community organizing and the voices of the people who have spoken up. We have had rallies, we have had all kinds of events. We've got people who have stepped up, and there was a woman in California who did the preliminary review. She was a retired professional. She read through the whole environmental assessment and found all of these inconsistencies and errors and mistakes and problems, and she listed them out. It was something like, I don't know, a 250-page document. She knew exactly which section to go to and find. So we've had people from Minnesota and all over the country, people from Alaska, all over the country, people helping us with different things. And also doing a local vocal, if you like, making their voices heard. And this was one of the signs that they had out at the airport with one of their rallies. It was so fun because at the rally, so we were going to take our ask to the airport commissioners board, which is supposed to meet on October 28th. They only allow 3 or 4 speakers. So we all signed up and we were going to, present what we wanted, our information. Well, they canceled the meeting. They don't want to hear us. And one of the signs at the thing was, they're not listening. And they put out chairs in the parking lot of the airport, one for each of the commissioners, and put the commissioner's name on there with empty chairs. So they do not want to listen. So we have a lot of work to do. And please go to the bellbowlprairie.org website and see what you can do, because even though the kind of hysteria of the last month, or the panic and all of this stuff rising up because we had this November 1st deadline, it doesn't mean it's over. It just means we have a little extension, a little more time to work. So we still need to get the word out. So I'm happy to present to any of your other groups or anybody else you'd like to include. Maybe Rotary. Does anybody here belong to Rotary? We could do Rotary or any of those sorts of groups too. So thank you. Any questions from, yes?
I have a question. Do we have a name at Amazon or an office of the environmental?
I think some of that information might be on the website.
Okay.
Because we have a whole list of who to contact at what organizations.
I think with money talks, if we can.
And when this first started, we did a whole Twitter thing because Jeff Bezos had just come out with some outrageous $2 billion or something he was going to put towards saving the environment, but it was all like Africa and South America and places. And we said, hey, Jeff Bezos, put your money where your mouth is. How about right here in Rockford where you're doing this airport expansion for your company? So we did a Twitter thing, and I don't think he looks at his own Twitter, but yeah.
Just a reminder, if Ann or.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So
Yeah,
Andrea had asked who to contact at Amazon. Okay, there's nothing in the chat, so I'm not seeing any questions in the chat unless Carolyn, you're seeing any that I can't see.
Not so far, but if you want to go to have her just be on speaker view,
Oh, sure.
nothing in chat so far.
we can stop share. Yeah.
But stop share. And then if you could repeat any questions you get in the room, that would be very helpful for us to out in Zoom.
We can go to gallery view.
Yeah. So Will, Nancy,
Is it possible for any of us that would like to visit the prairie to do that, or are we considered trespassers?
okay, so Nancy is asking, can we actually go to the prairie and take a look at it? So as soon as all of this happened, before this, yes, you could go to the prairie. People went all the time. They have put no trespassing up. They have hired a security firm. They have closed Cessna Road. And so we were having tours where people were just kind of driving around to see the prairie. And we were stopping on the main road, and it was kind of hard to see, but they would come and escort our vehicles away.
So the answer is no.
So the answer is, yeah, good luck. And now that it's also, so going out to the prairie, now that it's since 2001, we've got Homeland Security with all this other airport stuff. So it's a different kind of felony these days if you were to go strap yourself to a bulldozer on an airport. Yeah. Yeah.
And-
Well,
And
Thank you, Kerry, for this.
Yeah, just a second,
great
Carolyn.
effort
Yeah.
That's been done. I mean, I think that this is great, the progress that you've made thus far. And I really like Domenico's alternative concept designs. What have you thought about internally, or any of your committees, about the pie in the sky dream of having this corridor where Domenico's connecting the prairie that would be preserved to the river, and maybe, some kind of green corridor, and and how, have you looked at the other landowners that are adjacent, and is that a possibility?
so our core design team is going to be talking about that tomorrow. And we have to decide, do we want to go to the airport with a huge pie in the sky thing? Or do we want to just focus on saving the prairie and then maybe doing that later? So we don't want to confuse them, have them dig their heels in. So yeah, we are thinking about it, but we're going to be doing a strategic approach.
Carolyn, go ahead.
so the only question I had, there was a question very early on in the chat, and it may have been answered during the presentation, so I'm sorry if it has. Somebody asked, was the new spring deadline set because the plants would not have emerged yet? Again, I think that might have been answered, but I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you that I really don't know what was in the minds of the airport authority when the FAA, it was the FAA, IDOT, and the airport authority who set that date. That could have been something. I also think it was because they took a look at our lawsuit and they heard everybody's voices and they were like, whoa, we were blindsided by this. We need time so that we can pull our legal act together. But I also think they have contracts out there and there's penalties on those contracts. So every day that they're not out there working is more money being lost, which is why they're working out there now, but just not on the prairie. And it means that every day that they're working out there, they're more invested in their plan that they have.
They're original.
So we're trying to get a meeting with them soon, like next week, which is why we need to get this design team together. And we have to negotiate that between the lawyers.
Any other questions?
Nancy?
I had heard early on initially, there was some discussion about the potential of transplanting plants, but as you pointed out, the prairie is more than just what you see on the top. So what kind of discussion or where did that go?
So the IDNR was prepared to go and dig up plants the Friday and the Saturday before the November 1st deadline as a last ditch effort. When the airport agreed with us that they wouldn't go out until March, the DNR backed off and they have not gone out to dig up plants. So we don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of uncertainty about the future. Yeah.
Appreciate that because it's a lot more than just
It's,
plucking the plant out.
Yeah,
and putting
yeah.
it
It's-
someplace.
Yeah, the ecosystem and the insects and mycorrhizals and micro habitat. Cynthia,
There are models for this in other areas. I live in Algonquin, and just downstream from my home, there's a Long Meadow toll bridge. Also, a habitat of the rusty patch bumblebee, a fen, and old oak trees that are now all gone for the most part, because the bridge went through. What other examples of local situations like you're in? Because that was something that was held off for like 25 years. But it's now gone through. So it is a long haul, and I just commend you for starting this because it probably won't be over on March 1st either.
no, I don't think so.
So this is, this is an advocacy that could last decades.
Cynthia, they can't hear you.
So, yeah, they're saying this is,
My question is for
yeah.
the audience to repeat that is what other model examples in our community do you draw on? Are there connections or lessons learned? Same thing with the environmental impact study on the Fox River that your experience was inadequate.
so the question has to do with, are there other models that we can draw on for this kind of experience? And some of the local ones that she mentioned have gone on for decades. So I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning. This is 2021. We're going to start working on long-term solutions legislatively and with processes within all of the different regulatory agencies because they are no longer functioning. They're no longer functioning for us. And these need to change. So we hope it doesn't take decades. No.
So Steve,
Have you had dialogue with Senator Durbin's office?
We have had dialogue with Senator Durbin's office. I've been in phone calls with his chief of the environmental section. He's done some research for us, particularly on where the funding came from. Senator Durbin did put out a statement. It was just something about, oh, please work with your partners. So we're going to hold him to that.
so this is going to impact not just the Bell Bowl Prairie and the airport, but this legislation could help all of us because
Yeah.
there are bumblebees all over the place and they're not just bumblebees.
So what we're looking towards is because this INAI site is on private property, even though it's public property, okay, there's a real problem here. There's a lot of discussion going on there about that. And any Illinois Natural Areas Inventory site that's on private property is not protected. So currently there's no incentive. So I really want to see an incentivized plan where these areas are protected with legal protection and the landowner can sign up. There are also already some things in, but they don't cover under 5 acres. And the landowner can sign up and come kind of like the forestry plans that they have here. The landowner signs up and gets a management plan. They do their management. They get huge tax reductions for that area that they're protecting, or their woods or whatever. Why not have an incentivized program for these landowners to help them manage these sites? We don't want to just do like eminent domain. That's not going to work.
Any other questions? I think we're good.
No.
Thank you.
Julie, can I-
Everybody, thank you so much.
Dennis, did you have a question?
Actually, I did. It looks like the meeting is wrapped up though, but
No, that's okay. You
Hi,
can
Dennis.
go ahead.
That's okay, Dennis. I'm still
Okay.
here.
We're answering, Dennis, go ahead.
yeah, just Cynthia asked about examples and I just wanted to point people to some other planning that we've done in the area. And actually Nancy Williamson is very familiar with this. So I'm sure she'd be glad to talk to people. We developed something called the Kishwaukee River Corridor Green
Oh, yeah.
Infrastructure Plan, which featured this entire area except the airport property because for various reasons they didn't want to be involved. But that talks about some of these big picture opportunities and it also presents examples where there were win-win situations that actually evolved from situations where there was environmental conflict, to begin with. And one that I was involved in that's mentioned in this plan is a huge intermodal project on in Joliet where the developer, a national company, basically said, rather than fight the system and try to ram this through, kind of like the airport authority did, they basically chose to work with all the resource agencies, Fish and Wildlife, DNR, Nature Preserves Commission, as well as environmental groups. And it was almost unprecedented at the time, but they ended up getting their permits done ahead of schedule. They got a claim from environmental groups. They made a major contribution for long-term management of the areas that were set aside. So there are great examples of win-win. It's just a matter of finding the willingness of the developer to basically say, yeah, we want to do this the right way. And we'll look better if we do it the right way. We'll get the project done on schedule and we're not going to be, fighting City Hall as it were. So just wanted to throw that out there. And again, that document, the Kishwaukee River Corridor Green Infrastructure Plan is online. You can just Google it. And there's some good examples in there.
It's also on our webpage. It's also there, like there's a 4-page executive summary of it too. So if you go to naturalland.org and go to quick links, you'll be able to find that plan. Thank you, Dennis. Steve?
Yeah, you asked for examples. I would just throw out the story of protecting Bluff Spring Fen. It was owned by the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. And it took 7 years to finally get that site dedicated as a nature preserve. But really it was the personal approach, reaching out to the board of the Water Reclamation District repeatedly, having more people at their board meeting than those that wanted to talk about their $3 billion budget, but there were people there that wanted to talk about Bluff Spring Fen. So I think what you started on, embarked upon, and reaching out and making this more of a public issue will pay dividends as well.
And they have a page on Facebook that is maintained on a daily basis, the Save the Bell Bowl Prairie, on Facebook that they maintain, as well as a website, and also through the Natural Land Institute. Okay,
Hey,
thank you, Kerry.
thank you, everybody.
I'm turning off the recording.